Hey everybody, it's Tuesday when I'm recording this, so I might have met you already, maybe even last week, if not Monday, to discuss some initial ideas for our final research project here, or depending on when you're looking at this, I might be meeting with you on Wednesday. But since I won't see you a whole ton before we're kind of back in class, and again, we'll take a look at our syllabus here like I've done with most of you already, just to see how the rest of our time lays out here. But I wanted to make sure that everyone was kind of gaining some clarity on our final assignment. Again, like I said in class, it happens to be our last project, but it's not all of a sudden bigger in scope than anything we've done before. In fact, for many people, it might be more limited in scope for reasons of time, but also because of the nature of the thing that we're doing. We also now have the benefit, if you look into Unit 12, which is where we're at when I'm recording this, of having a few folks post their initial project ideas. And so we have some really good examples, and I'm going to just choose one of them, and I almost hate to do this because it's like a totally random choice in some ways. So this isn't like the only good one, there's lots of other ones, etc., etc. So if you met with me last week, you would have done this in Unit 11, so again, people have done this already. If you're meeting with me in this week, you're doing it as part of Unit 12. And then regardless of whether I saw you last week or this week, you're also doing this part of Unit 12, which is seeking some outside input. Again, stuff we've kind of done before, but it's a particular kind of input that you're looking for, and I'll explain that as we look at the example that I wanted to focus on here. So again, these are the folks who've posted so far. We should see some more coming in as people begin to clarify ideas, but also complete the work for Unit 12, which is where we're at. It's important to understand that the assignments that are in Unit 12 are not like additional to your research project that's ongoing. It is part of the research project, so it's not like a separate thing that you're doing on the side. You'll see how it kind of scaffolds you through the various steps we want to get to as part of our project here. Anyway, the example that I'm going to pull is Mackenzie's, which is the first one on the list here. And so she came in to meet with me and really didn't have much of an idea of like what this was about or what direction to go. And that's okay. That's sort of like the whole purpose of the opportunity to meet one-on-one, is to have that conversation. And so through conversation, through thinking about the assignment and what the goals were, she came up with, I think, something that is a really good example, because the pieces of what we want to do are really, really identifiable in what she's going to take on here. So we want to think of our final project, again, with a view towards really making the writing or the composing, the creating that we're doing valuable outside of our class. So we don't want to get into that model like you're probably used to from a lot of other experiences, where I give you an assignment, the topic's already laid out. Maybe in some cases you have the ability to choose your own topic. That's like the height of freedom sometimes. But you just produce a research essay. It kind of regurgitates a lot of information that you pull together from various sources. You hand it to me. Maybe you present it to a class, but then it doesn't really do anything after that. So certainly pieces of that are valuable, right? The composing part, the research part. But we really want to see how writing, or the work that we do, not even just limited to writing, can have some significant impact within a discourse community that we are part of or that we participate in. So again, there's similar things that we do as part of this project that you would have done before in our class, but also probably other kinds of like quote-unquote research classes or research paper writing classes. But there's some differences, and that's what I want to focus on right here. So I'm going to jump to Mackenzie's portfolio page here and her proposal document. Again, the proposal is, a fairly informal document at this point. Things will change. You're just guessing at how it's going to play out. But what Mackenzie and I arrived at in our discussion was first trying to figure out, what discourse communities she was a part of. And it took a while, but one obvious one that emerged is her job at Old Navy, a big retail outlet. So that whole world of retail is one discourse community. The corporation that is Old Navy and that whatever parent company owns, like Banana Republic and Gap and that whole thing, that's another discourse community. But those are really, really big. So we're not going to try to enter realistically into massive problems that global retail might face. That's not the thing that we're going to solve, quote unquote, in our kind of problem solution approach here. But Mackenzie works at this particular branch, and the problem or the issue that she's noted is, like she outlines here, the fact that new employees don't seem to be getting the best kind of training because they're still struggling. They don't know how to do things, or certain things are more complicated than others, or there's particular things that people always forget the steps to do, whatever that might be. Now, Mackenzie maybe hasn't figured that out yet, like what exactly are the problem points. But that's the research she does. So if we go back to our unit here, and we think about the second half, not the proposal part, but the seeking outside input, if she goes, or when she goes to talk to the manager at that particular branch, that is her expert outside source at this point, providing not even so much feedback as input, like, here's the actual problem that we can address, and this is the kind of thing that I'd really love you, Mackenzie, to create, which is not going to be like a 15-page research paper about, I don't know, global retail or child labor. Certainly important topics, don't get me wrong, but that's not the kind of thing that Mackenzie's going to usefully produce for the manager at Old Navy, who's going to look at it and be like, hey, that's terrific, and then, we can all imagine where it goes from there. So, again, part of the research project is Mackenzie reaching out to this particular person within this discourse community to figure out, like, what is the issue that we can address. And so she already has a sense of what it is. She's going to flesh out the specifics of how this is actually going to work. And she might produce some behind-the-scenes stuff, like on her Google site, maybe a slideshow that she might like show to us within the class. But the deliverable to that discourse community, or to the person, the manager, for use within that community at the store, might be some form of like a poster, a flyer, literally a one-page document. Like, the clearer and more concise it is, the better, that will lay out some steps for maybe common things that people have to do as part of that job, but that new employees struggle the most with. And again, the research part for Mackenzie is figuring out like what those things are, and then producing a thing like a poster, flyer, informational sheet, or whatever, that will actually be useful by those people. So it's a clear sort of problem. We investigate what that is. It's an issue. It's not global warming. It's not gun control. It's not some enormous thing. And then we try to actually solve that problem. And even sometimes we just make things a little bit better, so the problem doesn't totally go away, but we've made an impact on the world that we're a part of, the world that's like meaningful for us because we're in it almost every day. Hopefully you don't work that much, Mackenzie, but you get the idea. So that's, again, a really good example because we see how that problem solution or issue solution framework sort of works, but on a scale that really makes sense for us to take action outside of the class. And so again, one of the earliest steps that you want to do is figure out what's the discourse community you're talking about, right? Not just people in the world or thousands or millions of people. That's too big. Something that's much smaller that you are more directly connected with. And what's an issue that's relevant to that community and, of course, to you because you're a part of it. And how can you like address that by talking with those people? So don't guess at what the manager at the store might want, or the person at your organization might want, or whatever the case might be. Actually ask them. Do you see how that's both like revolutionary but totally common sense too? So you're not just guessing at these things, you're having that conversation. That's the form of research that we do. And then you produce a final product for your research project that isn't 30 pages long, that might not have 15 or 20 sources cited, but is tailored to the actual needs of that discourse community. So again, behind the scenes, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of stuff that might show up on your portfolio page, for example, if you do surveys or do planning documents or gather information of different kinds. But the deliverable to that place, like to the manager at Mackenzie's Old Navy outlet, is going to be a much more concise, precise, tailored thing. We don't even know if it's going to be a document. It might be print. It might be digital. It might be a web-based thing. It might be a much more visual thing. It all depends on your particular research situation. That's why I can't assign it as a thing to do right now, because you figure that out. That's actually one of the most important pieces of what we learn in this class. All right. So again, as we get more examples showing up on that discussion board, if you're really stuck, go into there and look at the ones, again, look at Mackenzie's, and there's others that really have targeted an identifiable community that somebody is part of that's small enough to actually work with, to talk to. And then the way that someone could, you know, do that outreach and then figure out, like, what could I produce, create, write, do that would be useful for that discourse community that I've identified and actually been in conversation with. Either literally, verbally conversation, email, you know, whatever makes sense. Okay, just laying out our syllabus then. And I know I reviewed this with many folks already, but it's good to take a kind of global look. So we're in Unit 12 here. I'm meeting with folks on Monday, Wednesday. We have the 2 discussion board assignments, or the assignments, I should say, in Unit 12, the proposal doc, if you haven't done it yet, and then the reaching out for your sort of quote-unquote expert seeking input, all part of what you would be doing as the research project. Coming into class on Monday with focused work time, right? I will take very little of that class for my purposes. I'll be able to work with people one-on-one, but come ready to do something in that class. You don't want to just sit there and still not really have an idea of what's going on. I'm then out of town, so we have no class meeting on Wednesday. I'll be available via email, so we can always keep in touch. But again, you really want to have a sense of how you want to use this time here. Then we're into Thanksgiving week. So classes are in session this day, but I'm just going to make it an optional kind of like conference day if you want to come and check in with me, show me what you got, if you're stuck still, etc., whatever. Then we have no classes because of Thanksgiving. And then we're back trying to share out our more or less finished project. So again, think in terms of scope. This is not a huge solve the problems of the world 30-page research paper. We don't have time for that, and that's not really what we're doing here. We're doing something that's focused, targeted, that might produce a fairly, you know, what would you say, like a final product that is not really text intensive, if that's the thing that makes most sense for this particular like situation or rhetorical situation that you're identifying. So really the legwork that you're doing in Unit 12 here is fundamental to what the rest of your research or research project is going to look like, because your conversation with somebody or some people within that identified discourse community, that will dictate the thing that you work towards. We're not going to figure that out on our own before you've had that conversation. So again, think about that, right? Laying the groundwork, having a good idea, but also really look at how the time lays out in front of us, being realistic about how much you're going to get done over Thanksgiving break, for example, and then coming in to our class meetings here, ready to share out what we've done. We might still have some loose ends to tie up, so everything is not completely polished and perfect, but there shouldn't be major gaps in what you're doing by this point. And there's lots of time devoted here, so we really do want to share out what we've created. This, like I've said before, is something that you should be like really proud of. It's been challenging, if not hard work. It doesn't mean that you've typed a billion pages, but you've done something that actually is useful in the world, and God forbid we do that as part of going to school, right? Okay, so as always, keep in touch with me. We have limited face-to-face time just because of the way that the schedule lays out. So, if you're stuck, if you run into problems, if you're not sure what to do next, etc., just shoot me an email. I'll see everybody back in class on this Monday. Where are we here? Monday, right? November 12th. But again, devoted to project work time. So come in with a plan for yourself. All right. Take care, everybody.